My wife cheated on me with our neighbor, then stole $200, $0 from our joint account to run away with him. Now she's claiming half my inheritance and threatening to take our house in a bitter legal battle. Hello everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, writing about how my wife of all people, turned out to be the biggest liar and cheat I've ever met. The craziest part, it all unraveled in a matter of days, and I swear the whole thing felt like a damn soap opera. One moment she's acting normal, the next she's caught in a lie so big it could have been a damn Hollywood script. So let me start from the beginning. My name's Mike, I'm 42, and I've been with Lisa, my wife, for about 15 years. We met in college, had a pretty typical stable relationship, and got married about 10 years ago. I thought we had a good thing going. She was. Always a little bitchy, sure, but she could be sweet when she wanted to be. She was also pretty vain, loved shopping, and always had to be the center of attention. At first, everything seemed fine. We had a nice house, decent jobs, a couple of kids, and a pretty comfortable life. But I noticed some strange little things starting to pop up over the last few months. She'd be more secretive with her phone, hiding texts and messages, which wasn't like her. She'd also start coming home later than usual, claiming she was working late or meeting friends. I didn't think much of it. People do change, right? Maybe I was just overthinking it, but deep down I had this gut feeling that something was off. Then about 2 weeks ago, I saw her phone light up with a message that made my stomach drop. It was from someone named Jake, and the message was pretty explicit, something about a secret meeting, and she was saying she'd be there around midnight. My heart started pounding. I looked over her shoulder, but she quickly snatched the phone away and said she was just talking to yeah, right, that night. I couldn't sleep. I kept going over everything in my head. The way she'd been acting, the secretive texts, the late nights. I decided I'd check her stuff when she was out. I waited until she left for a girls' night, which she always claimed was just that. But I knew better. I snuck into her purse, and wouldn't you know it, her phone was there, unlocked. I saw the messages with Jake again, and this time there were even more. They'd been meeting up, talking about getting away, leaving everything behind and starting fresh. I felt like I'd been sucker punched. My first thought was, how long has this been going on? And what the hell does she want with Jake? She always pretended she was so dedicated to our marriage, and now I find out she's been lying right to my face. I was furious, but I also felt this sick, sinking feeling, like I'd been played for a fool all these years. I confronted her about the messages when she got home. She acted surprised, like she had no idea what I was talking about. She told me Jake was just a coworker, that I was overreacting and that I was paranoid. She insisted they were just friends, that I was making a big deal out of nothing. But I wasn't stupid. I knew better. I saw the way she looked at her phone, the nervousness in her voice. I could see the cracks in her story. That confrontation was just the beginning. I started digging deeper, checking bank accounts, looking through her emails. That's when I found out she'd been funneling money out of our joint account. About $200, $0 gone. Just disappeared. I couldn't believe it. She was planning to run away with Jake, I was sure of it. And it hit me like a freight train. She'd been cheating on me, lying to my face, and stealing from us all at the same time. The betrayal cut deep. I'd trusted her with everything, my life, my money, my family. And she'd been playing me for a fool. I was angry, I was hurt, and I was starting to see that this wasn't just about infidelity anymore. It was about betrayal on a whole new level. I decided I had to do something. I couldn't let her get away with it, but I did. Know exactly what that was yet. All I knew was that I needed to find out the full story before I made any moves. So that's where I am now, standing at the edge of this nightmare, trying to figure out what to do next. The woman I loved, the woman I thought I knew, was gone, replaced by someone I don't even recognize. And the worst part, I could feel her grip tightening, already threatening to take half my inheritance and even my house in some bitter legal battle. She's got her claws out, and I'm just trying to keep my head above water. After discovering the money was gone and realizing she was planning to run off with Jake, I knew I had to act fast. The thought of losing everything, my house, my inheritance, my peace of mind, made my blood run cold. I started to piece together what I could, but I needed more concrete evidence. I couldn't just confront her again with vague suspicions. I had to catch her in the act or find undeniable proof of her plans. The first step was to get into her phone again. I knew she'd be paranoid now, so I had to be careful. I waited until she was working late again. She always had excuses, said she was closing a deal or meeting a client, but I knew better. That night I slipped into her purse once more. Her phone was there, and I unlocked it with the code I'd managed to guess after watching her for a while. What I found was even more damning. There were emails from a lawyer. She'd already started the process to transfer ownership of the house into her name alone. She also contacted some shady finance guys about setting up accounts for her new life. She'd been planning her escape for weeks, and then I saw the messages with Jake again. They were talking about when she'd leave, where they'd go, how much money she'd need to start fresh. It was all laid out. My stomach twisted. I felt sick. I was furious. How could she do this? She'd been lying to me for months, maybe longer. She'd been sneaking around, stealing from us, and plotting her new life with some guy who was just a neighbor. I'd always thought Lisa was a little high maintenance, but I never imagined she'd betray me like this. I had to confront her, but I wanted to do it smart. I needed to catch her red-handed, so I made a plan. I would follow her the next day when she said she was out meeting a client. I needed to see where she was going, who she was with. If she was really meeting Jake, I wanted proof. I also wanted to see if she had plans to take the kids or if she was just planning to leave everything behind, including our home. That day, I followed her in my car. She left early, looking anxious. I trailed her to a small, rundown motel on the outskirts of town. She went inside, and I parked a few blocks away, watching through my binoculars. She stayed inside for a couple of hours, then left alone, looking tense. I followed her to a bank, and she a large sum of cash, more proof she was preparing to run. I felt like I was living in a nightmare. My life was unraveling faster than I could keep up. I had to act quickly now. I called a lawyer, one I'd found through some shady contacts I knew. I told him everything about the money, the house, her plans, Jake, and asked what I could do to stop her. He told me I should file for an emergency court order to freeze her assets and prevent her from selling the house or taking the kids out of state. That night, I sat alone, staring at the walls of the bedroom I'd shared with her for years. I felt numb, exhausted. My mind kept racing over everything she'd said, her lies, her excuses, her "I love yous" that I now saw as hollow. I remembered the times she'd told me I was paranoid, that I didn't trust her. Now I knew she'd been planning this whole time. How could she be such a bitch? How could she lie so effortlessly? I also felt a little hopeless. What was I going to do? I was just a regular guy. I'd worked hard for everything, and now, suddenly, it all felt like it was slipping away. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I kept thinking about how betrayed I felt, and how angry I was that she'd thrown away our life together for some cheap thrill and quick cash. I knew I had to act fast. But I also knew this was just the beginning. The next day, I went to the lawyer's office. We filed the papers for an emergency restraining order, trying to stop her from doing anything drastic. I also started gathering all the evidence I could: screenshots of her messages, bank statements, the emails from the lawyer, everything that could prove she was planning to steal from me and the kids. I didn't want to just catch her cheating. I wanted to make sure she didn't get away with destroying us financially or emotionally. While I was doing all this, Lisa called me twice. The first time, she played the victim, crying and saying I was overreacting, that she was just trying to fix things, that I was paranoid and controlling. The second time, she was more aggressive, accusing me of spying and trying to ruin her life. She kept lying, insisting she was innocent, that I was jealous and insecure. But I knew better. I knew her game now. I realized that her accusations and tears were just her way of trying to manipulate me. She thought she could spin her lies, get me to back off, and then run away. With Jake stealing everything I had worked for, I wasn't going to let her do that, not without a fight. I'd already lost so much trust, but I was determined to protect what was left of my life, my home, and my future. This whole situation has changed me. I used to think I was a decent, straightforward guy. Now I see how easy it is for someone you love to turn into a total stranger, someone capable of lies, betrayal, and theft. And I've learned that if you don't watch your back, people will take everything you have, including your sense of security. I'm not sure how this story will end, but I know one thing. I won't go down without a fight. The day after I filed the emergency court papers, everything felt surreal. I was walking around in a fog, trying to keep it together while dealing with the reality that my wife, was actively trying to steal my house, my money, and possibly even my kids. It was like I'd been hit with a ton of bricks, but I knew I couldn't afford to fall apart now. I had to stay sharp. I spent the morning calling every lawyer and financial advisor I could find, trying to figure out my options. I also contacted the bank to put a freeze on the joint account, anything I could do to stop her from draining it further. The lawyer I'd spoken to seemed confident that I had a strong case, especially with the evidence I'd gathered. Still, I knew she was smart, manipulative, and willing to fight dirty. I had to be prepared for a legal war. I also took a moment to think about the bigger picture. My wife Lisa had always been a bit of a bitch, demanding, vain, quick to lie, but I never thought she'd do something this destructive. She'd always been good at hiding her true colors until now. And now it all hit me. She'd been using me, manipulating me, all while planning her escape with Jake. I felt like a fool. How could I have been so blind? That afternoon, I decided to confront her directly. I knew she'd be furious because I'd gone behind her back, but I didn't care anymore. I arranged to meet her at the house, telling her I wanted to talk, really talk, about everything. I wanted her to see the damage she'd done. When she arrived, she looked tense, her bitchy attitude masking her nerves. She was trying to act like everything was fine, like I was overreacting. We sat in the living room and I laid out the evidence I had, screenshots of her messages, the emails from the lawyer, the bank withdrawal slips. Her face turned pale when she saw the proof. She tried to deny it, of course, calling it all a big misunderstanding, a mistake, or just some stupid flirtation with Jake. She claimed she was trying to fix our marriage, that she loved me, and that I was just jealous and paranoid. I lost my temper. I told her that I wasn't stupid, that I knew she'd been planning this for weeks. I told her I knew about the money, about her plans to take the house, and that I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I told her I'd fight her in court if I had to, and that I'd do everything I could to protect my rights and my kids. I saw her trying to spin her lies, but I wasn't buying it anymore. I'd heard enough bullshit from her. She started crying big fake tears, saying I was ruining everything, that I was destroying our family, and that she'd never cheat on me. She insisted she was innocent, that Jake was just a friend, and that I was crazy for suspecting her. But I could see the desperation in her eyes. She knew she'd been caught and she was trying to save her own ass. It was pathetic, really. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about how much I'd trusted her, how she'd lied to my face for so long. I wondered if I'd ever really known her at all. The betrayal cut deep, and I was angry at myself for not seeing the signs sooner. I'd always thought I was a decent guy, honest, loyal, and now I realized I'd been played like a fool. But I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I knew I couldn't let her win. She was planning to steal my house, my inheritance, everything I'd built. I had to fight for what was rightfully mine. I called my lawyer again and asked about the next steps. We'd file for a temporary injunction to stop her from selling or transferring the house. And I'd also start the process to get full custody of the kids. I wasn't going to let her drag everything through the mud without a fight. Meanwhile, Lisa kept calling, trying to manipulate me over the phone. She accused me of ruining her life, of not trusting her, and of trying to control her. She's good at playing the victim, I'll give her that. But I saw through her act now. I knew she was just desperate, cornered, and trying to save her own skin. I had no illusions about how this all would turn out. I knew she'd fight dirty, probably try to twist the legal system to her advantage. But I also knew I had evidence, solid proof, that could stop her. I was angry, yes, but I was also determined. I'd been betrayed in the worst way, and I was ready to do whatever it took to protect myself, my kids, and what was left of my dignity. Now, I just had to wait for the court hearing. I felt exhausted, drained, and filled with a mixture of rage and heartbreak. I'd loved Lisa once, hell, I still loved her in some sick way, but I could keep living in this nightmare. I had to stand up for myself and fight for what's mine. I'd learned a harsh lesson: trust no one completely, especially not the ones you think you know. And sometimes the biggest betrayal comes from someone you're supposed to trust the most. The court hearing was a nightmare. I sat there, feeling like I was on trial myself, waiting for the judge to decide whether Lisa could take the house or not. I had all the evidence laid out: screenshots, bank statements, her own emails, and I knew I had a strong case. But Lisa was there, looking all fake tears and bitchy smirks, trying to play the victim. She was spinning her usual lies, claiming I was controlling, paranoid, and that she loved me and just wanted to fix things. The lawyer I hired did a good job laying out my side. We argued that Lisa was planning to steal the house, that she'd already withdrawn hundreds of thousands of dollars, and that she'd been secretly working with Jake to disappear. The judge listened carefully, flipping through the evidence, and I could see the wheels turning. It was tense. I kept thinking how much I'd trusted her, how I'd believed she loved me, and now she was trying to take everything we had built. Lisa's lawyer tried to argue that she had every right to her share of the inheritance, that she'd been a good wife, and that I was just trying to control her. They brought up her right to half of everything, including the house, and claimed I was trying to ruin her life. I was furious. I wanted to shout, but I kept my cool. I knew the judge was listening, watching her little act, and I had to be calm. Finally, the judge made a ruling. She granted a temporary injunction, stopping Lisa from selling or transferring the house and freezing the joint account. She also ordered Lisa to stay away from the house and the kids until the next hearing. I felt a small wave of relief. It wasn't a full victory, but it was enough to slow her down, at least for now. I knew she'd try to find a way around it, but I also knew I'd be ready. That night, I sat alone in the house I'd shared with Lisa for years. It was quiet, empty. The reality hit me hard. This was really happening. My wife, the woman I'd loved, trusted, and built a life with, had been planning her escape, stealing from us and lying to my face for months. I felt a mix of anger, sadness, and betrayal. I kept replaying her words, her fake tears, her desperate attempts to manipulate the system. I realized how good she was at lying, at pretending she cared. But I also knew I couldn't let her win. Not entirely. I'd fought hard to protect what was mine, and I'd keep fighting. I started to think about the next steps. I needed to get full custody of the kids, protect my inheritance, and make sure she couldn't take the house, or at least that I'd have a fighting chance to keep it. I contacted my lawyer again, discussing what to do next. Meanwhile, Lisa kept calling me, more tears, more accusations. She called me heartless, jealous, and controlling, trying to turn the tables. She said I was ruining her life and that I was the one who was crazy for suspecting her all along. I didn't believe her anymore. I saw her for what she was: a manipulative, selfish bitch who'd been willing to destroy everything just to run off with her lover and a chunk of my money. I realized that she wasn't going to stop. She'd fight tooth and nail to get her way, but I was done playing nice. I'd do whatever it took: go to court, get the police involved if I had to, and dig up every piece of dirt I could find. I was tired of her lies, tired of feeling betrayed, and tired of feeling helpless. From now on, I was going to stand my ground. The worst part, I still loved her. Somewhere deep down, I guess I still do. But love doesn't mean much when someone's willing to destroy your life for a quick thrill and a pile of cash. I've learned that the hard way. Trust is gone. The woman I thought I knew turned out to be a liar, a thief, and a manipulator. And I'm left here trying to pick up the pieces, wondering how everything fell apart so fast. I don't know what's coming next. I only know I won't back down. I've got a fight ahead, and I'm ready for it. I just hope I come out of this with some dignity intact, and maybe, just maybe, some sense that I did everything I could to protect what's mine. Because if there's one thing I've learned, it's this: betrayal cuts deep, but standing your ground is the only way to get through it. The days after the court hearing felt like walking through a fog. I was doing everything I could to stay ahead of Lisa's moves, but honestly, it was exhausting. Every time I thought I had a handle on things, she'd surprise me, sending threatening texts, calling the lawyer, trying to manipulate the situation to her advantage. I knew she was desperate, and I could see that her bitchy, manipulative side was only getting worse. I spent hours poring over legal documents, trying to understand the next steps. My lawyer advised me to gather even more evidence, anything that could prove she was planning to defraud me or steal the house. I also started to dig into her finances even more, hiring a private investigator to get a clearer picture of her assets and her plans. I needed to be one step ahead of her at all times. Meanwhile, Lisa's attitude was getting nastier. She'd call me late at night crying, accusing me of trying to ruin her life and controlling her every move. She insisted she was innocent, that she'd never do anything to hurt me or the kids, and that I was just paranoid. But I knew better. I saw through her fake tears now. She was just trying to guilt me into backing off, into letting her run away with Jake and whatever money she could get her hands on. One day, I caught her in a blatant lie. I found a receipt for a large cash withdrawal, more than $50, $0 made in her name, but she told me she was at a spa with friends. I confronted her with the evidence, and her bitchy reaction was priceless. She snapped at me, saying I was paranoid and that I was trying to control her life. That was her usual fallback: deny, deny, deny. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I had enough proof to bury her in court if it came to that. I also started secretly recording her conversations. I wasn't proud of it, but I needed hard evidence of her plans, her talking about the house, the money, the kids. I caught her on a few recordings trying to convince me she was innocent, but I could hear the lies in her voice. It made me sick. I realized that I'd been blinded by her bitchy exterior for years, and now I was finally seeing the real Lisa: selfish, manipulative, and cold. One particular evening, she showed up at the house unexpectedly. She was furious, shouting about how I was trying to control her, how she was done with this marriage, and how she was going to take everything I had. She yelled that she'd fight for her rights, that she deserved half of my inheritance, and that I'd regret trying to stop her. I just stood there silent, watching her blow up. Inside, I felt a mix of anger and sadness. How could she be so bitter, so ruthless? I decided I couldn't keep going like this. I had to get serious. I contacted a forensic accountant to trace every dollar she'd taken, and I started preparing for a full-blown legal battle. I also looked into the possibility of filing for full custody of the kids. I knew Lisa would fight me on that too, but I had to protect them from her manipulations. I wanted to make sure she couldn't use the kids as leverage or pawn them off in her game. While all this was happening, Lisa's threats became more aggressive. She told me she'd take everything in court, that she'd ruin me, and that I'd regret ever trying to stop her. I felt a sinking feeling. This was turning into a bitter war, and I wasn't sure if I was ready for it. But I also knew I couldn't give up. I'd come too far to let her walk away with my house, my savings, and my future. One night, I sat alone in the dark, staring at the ceiling, trying to process everything. I loved Lisa once. I really did. But now I saw her for what she was: a manipulative, selfish bitch who'd do anything to get what she wanted. I felt betrayed beyond words. My trust was shattered, and I was left questioning everything about our life together. Yet, amid the chaos, I found a strange resolve. I realized I had to fight for my rights, protect what's mine. I couldn't let her steal my house, my inheritance, or my kids' future. I had to be smart, relentless, and prepared for whatever legal battles lay ahead. I knew she'd keep fighting dirty, but I was ready. I also learned some harsh truths about myself. I'd been naive, trusting too much, giving her the benefit of the doubt for too long. I'd been blinded by love, but now I saw clearly. The woman I'd loved was gone, replaced by someone cold and calculating. And I'd have to be just as tough if I wanted to come out of this with some dignity intact. So I keep fighting. Not just for the house or the money, but for my peace of mind and my kids. I don't know how this will end, but I do know one thing: I refuse to let her destroy everything we built. I'll keep pushing, keep fighting, and keep standing my ground. Because in the end, that's all I can do. The final stretch has been the hardest part. After months of fighting in court, gathering evidence, and trying to hold everything together, I finally got a clear picture of what I was dealing with. Lisa's lies, manipulations, and outright theft had pushed me to the brink, but I refused to let her win. I knew that no matter what, I had to stay strong for myself and for the kids. The court finally ruled in my favor. The judge granted full custody of the children to me, citing Lisa's recent behaviors and her attempts to manipulate the situation for her own gain. The house stayed in my name, and the freeze on her assets was confirmed. She was furious, of course, screaming at the top of her lungs outside the courthouse, calling me a terrible husband, a controlling monster, and threatening to ruin me in every way she could. But I had my proof, and I had the law on my side. In the days that followed, I started to rebuild. I put the house in order, got therapy for the kids, and slowly began to piece my life back together. The betrayal still stung, but I felt a strange sense of relief that I'd fought for what was rightfully mine. I realized I'd learned some tough lessons about trust, love, and the importance of protecting yourself from people who only care about themselves. Looking back, I see how I was. I trusted Lisa far too much, ignored the signs, and let her manipulate me for years. But I also understand that sometimes you have to hit rock bottom to realize your worth. I wish I'd seen her true colors sooner, but I guess everyone's got their breaking point. Now, I know I'll never let anyone get that close again unless they prove they can be honest and loyal. As for Lisa, she's now living somewhere else, trying to start over. She's still bitter, still bitchy, and still refuses to accept that she lost. But I don't care anymore. I've moved on. I've learned to be cautious, to guard my heart, and to never take trust for granted. The biggest takeaway for me is this: betrayal cuts deep, but it also teaches you who you really are. I found my strength in the darkest moments. I discovered that no matter how much someone tries to tear you down, you have the power to stand up and fight for what's yours. So here I am, finally at peace. The house is quiet, the kids are happy, and I've got a new perspective on life. I'll never forget what happened, but I refuse to let it define me. Instead, I see it as a harsh but necessary lesson. Never trust blindly, always protect what's yours, and sometimes the only way to survive is to fight back. That's the end of my story. If anyone out there is going through something similar, just remember, you're stronger than you think. Keep fighting, stay honest with yourself, and never let anyone steal your peace.